caution. You are about to enter the no-spin zone. The factor begins right now. Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thank you for watching us tonight. Responsible freedom of expression for kids and adults. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. First of all, my new book, Kids Are Americans Too, will be number 3 on the New York Times list next Sunday, and I thank all of you who are supporting this very important book. Kids Too bluntly tells teenagers what their rights are and what they cannot do. For example, if a religious high school student is being taunted at school because of his or her spirituality, that's a violation of his or her rights. But if a teacher tells a student to stop an action that is hurting the academic atmosphere, the teacher can do that. Enter some student protesters at Morton West High School in Chicago. A few dozen of them decided to protest the Iraq War in the school cafeterias. Citing the disruption, school officials asked the kids to take it outside. Some of them refused and were suspended. These demonstrators you see on your screen right now are protesting those suspensions. Talking Points applauds honest protests, but not at the expense of the public good. Interrupting the school day intrudes on others who might not share your point of view, and a protester has no right to do that. But the Chicago Sun-Times takes umbrage with my opinion. The paper says the students should not have been suspended. Quote, perhaps the students were causing disorder by their protest, but isn't that the point? No, it is not the point. The point is that if a protester violates the law or school rules, that person must be held accountable, or you have anarchy. Freedom of expression comes with responsibility. If you want to make your point in an unlawful way, you must pay the price. Another example. If somebody like Rosie O'Donnell wants to accuse American soldiers of killing civilians and the government of orchestrating 9/11, then Ms. O'Donnell must be prepared to face the consequences in the court of public opinion. Bernie and Jane will have more on that coming up. There is no free ride in the free speech arena. The Supreme Court has ruled that school officials, the military, businesses, and private property owners all have a constitutional right to establish boundaries of sane behavior. Otherwise, again, you'd have anarchy. These kids in Chicago intruded on the rights of other children when they didn't have to, and they were punished accordingly. Good. And that's the memo. Now for the top story tonight, another view of this. Joining us from Chicago is the editorial page editor of the Sun-Times, Cheryl Reed. First of all, Ms. Reed, I have to applaud you. You're one of the few editorial writers in the newspaper industry in America who stands up to defend what you write. Where am I making my mistake, madam?
Well, I don't think we disagree with you that that school was disrupted. But the only thing really that was disrupted in the academic environment was a mac and cheese sandwich. I mean, this was the cafeteria. This was not during school, during class. The person who really disrupted what was going on was the superintendent, who had a lockdown on all the classes as soon as the kids started protesting.
Well, that's not what he says, though. I mean, let's be fair to the man. I mean, he says
that is what we've been told according to our reporters.
We talked to him. All right, Dan Proft. All right, he's a spokesperson for the school district, and he says, look, we went in, the authorities went in, said to the kids, you can protest, but you got to do it outside because this kind of a thing can spread, and other kids can join in, and we can have a giant food fight, or we can have other kids who disagree with you, military families, come in, a brawl. So take it outside. And a bunch of kids said no. Now, that's a public safety hazard, number one. Okay, and number two, the school has the authority to order the kids to stop the disruption. It doesn't matter where it is. Could be in the gym, cafeteria. They have the authority. So the kids defied school authority.
They have a right to.
The kids defied the school authority, giving them an order, and they pay the price. That's what happens in school.
What we don't disagree that discipline needs to be administered here. What we disagree on is the draconian response of the superintendent. 10 days of suspension and possible expulsion is too severe. We think that there should be a Saturday detention. This is a teaching moment here. They can teach kids how to do a civil protest in a responsible manner, which would be to ask for permission to have some sort of demonstration. And we want kids to voice their opinion, to be involved. We don't want kids who are glued to their iPods, glued to their Xboxes, and not involved in what's going on overseas. I mean, most of these kids don't care about the government's foreign policy.
I agree with you on that, but a Saturday detention. All right, I agree with you on that. That we want kids to be thinking and involved with their country, but a Saturday detention is not. Look, they defied the principle. And that
But the
is a
message you're
major
sending,
deal
Bill,
in the school. It's a public safety
The
issue.
message you're sending is that you are rewarded to shut up, listen to the administration, and you'll have a bright future. But
No.
if you voice your
Be
opinion,
reasonable.
your
When they give you an
chances of
order-
going to a college are basically nil. That your academic education has been. Yes.
Miss Reed, look, I'm a former teacher, okay? If I give an order in the
So am I.
classroom, if I
So
give an
am
order,
I.
and
And
I'm
I've
sure
dealt
you
with a
feel the
lot of
same way.
apathetic students.
If I give it, look, apathetic students, fine. If I give an order in the classroom, the order is to be obeyed. If the people defy me in mass, as they did here, you've got to take action.
Then
Perhaps
teach
10
them how
days
to
is too
do
much.
it.
Fine.
But don't ruin their careers. Don't ruin their future.
Not going to ruin anybody's career. But anyway.
Yes,
look,
it will.
I think you're
By
way
a
too
10-day
soft on this. But I want to get into
suspension and a
another freedom of
possible
speech issue.
expulsion. I'm sorry?
I want to get into another freedom of speech issue. If any kid was expelled, unless they use profanity or something like that, I would go to that kid's age. I don't think they should be expelled. 10-day suspension, I'd have to know what the kid did, how defiant the kid was. But anyway, let's get into
Right.
adult freedom of speech. Now, did you actually say to our producer, if people think Rosie O'Donnell emboldens radicals with her irresponsible statements, the same could be said of Bill O'Reilly? Did you actually say that?
Probably, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not denying
so,
that.
do you put me and my commentary on the same par of a woman who says that the United States government killed 650,000 killed Iraqi civilians and was responsible for one of the towers, Building 7, going down? And you put my commentary in that?
No, I disagree with what she said, and I also disagree with a lot of things you say, Bill.
No, disagreement is fine, but I back my stuff up with facts. And to say something like that worries me because you are the top editorial writer at one of the biggest major dailies in the country. So how far left
Yes, but
are
we're
you?
for progressive thought, not against freedom of speech and against a dialogue, which is what you basically have said in terms of the Morton West kids, that you're against.
I like the dialogue, but if the teacher says or the principal says take it outside, you take it outside.
If it was that big of a disruption, there were police who could have arrested them, and they chose not to.
I can
They
imagine what the
characterized it as
Sun-Times
an
would have said about
orderly
that.
Protest.
All right. All right, Ms.
sorry?
Reed, look. Again, you came on the program. That's all we want. You wrote your editorial. People are free to agree or disagree. You are very brave to do this because a lot of other people wouldn't do it, and we respect that. Thanks for coming on. Next on the rundown, the prosecution